Everyone, screwed that up. Hey everyone, this is Jesse here. It's 11:44 p.m. 9/23/2015. This vlog will go up on Thursday. I've been making little videos of the puppies. I'll do like every 5 days. I'll do another video on the puppies so you can see their growth. Today's topic, I'm gonna go deep, so it may be like a 20-minute video. I'm not sure that it will be, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a good long vlog. Because I'm gonna go deep. Because some people don't have all the information, and some people don't know, and some of the information shouldn't be shared, but I'm gonna share it anyways. Just to get you up to date on why my mom is the way she is, and why I'm the way I am. Let's go back to the beginning. My mom quit school because her older sister had so many children. She had to quit school and go to work to live with her sister and her kids and support the kids. I don't know how many kids she had at that time, but my mom had to quit high school and go to work to help support her sister and her kids, because her father could no longer, or mother could no longer provide for them, and her sister was working but she couldn't make enough money. So let's go there. At some point my mom met my dad, and she got pregnant at 17, had me, and married. She was pregnant at 17, got married at 17, had me at 18. Okay, and so that starts year 0 of my life. We lived in Kirby, Arkansas, which was a very small town. Dad worked very, very hard. He made a really good living, or he made a lot of money each week. My dad was a partier. Let's put it that way. He was a partier, and he wasn't ready for children at all. He wasn't ready for children. She wasn't ready either, but he was definitely not ready for children. I don't know I'd say first 3 years, I don't retain very much from those. When I was 2, I had my tonsils and adenoids taken out, and I do remember that, vaguely. And some other things that people tell me, do you remember this happened to you? I'll say yes or no. Usually it's a no, but sometimes I'll recognize somebody that I was around when I was little. Anyhow, my dad continued to party. He would work 5 days a week. He would work hard. But by the time he got his check and it was the weekend, it was party time. And we lived in Arkansas, and it's fairly rural. So there was a lot of going fishing. Because we had a lake right there where we lived, like less than 5 miles from where we lived. We have a lake. And so there was lots of long nights out fishing, leaving fishing at 5 a.m. in the morning on your way home. And of course, me and my brother would be passed out in the car asleep, but he would drink, and all his buddies would drink. He would buy all the beer. He would buy all the partying supplies. If just use your mind there, and he bought all the party supplies, and that was back in the 80s. So you could guess what kind of party supplies they were buying, and so that carried on. And then I started to notice around 5 years old that my daddy took a liking to my brother over me, because I wasn't the fisherman. I didn't like to fish. I liked to swim, and they liked to fish. So when Andrew liked to fish, my brother liked to fish, so he took over, like he just took Andrew over as his kid, kinda. And he didn't really deal with me at all. So mom had to be my mom and dad, pretty much. Well, the partying continued, the drinking continued. I occasionally did see my mother drinking with her friends, but she never ever got drunk. I think I witnessed my mom drunk, but by the time from I was 0 to 10, I think I witnessed my mom drunk one time. Just one time. But she would drink a couple of beers with her girlfriends, my dad's friends, wives and kids and stuff, at the lake or wherever we were. Um, but he started getting physical, and I'm sure he was physical with her, physically abusive, with her while I was young. But then I started, when you're a kid, you start to remember things, you start to realize things, and I started to realize he was very abusive to her. He was abusive to me. He was abusive to Andrew. If we got into trouble, it was a hardcore whooping. It wasn't a little slap on a hand or a slap on the butt. It was a hardcore beating, whooping. Anything he could pick up, like a clothes hanger, wires, like cords, anything. And he did a lot of bad things and got many DWIs, was in jail many times. Mom never got any charges on her. She was always the one to drive us home after the cops took him, because he usually always drove. He would not let my mom drive even though he was drunk. So, so there's that. He got physically abusive toward mom, me, and my brother. And by the time I was 10, my mom couldn't take it anymore, couldn't take the beatings anymore. And he also mentally abused us, emotionally and mentally abused us all along the way, the whole 10 years that I was alive. And he, by the time I was 10, mom kind of went off and got her job and got her a house, and she dropped me and my brother off at my aunt's house, her sister, to watch us for a few days, for a little while. And that way she had the money, the job, the vehicle to go to the job, and she could take care of us. Well, the day comes, she come to pick us up, and they had told me so many bad things about my mom that I believed them. And so I ran behind the house and into the house. Mom comes in the house. For some reason, my father, who shouldn't have been there at all, but me, my brother, and my father were living with her sister, my mom's sister. They wouldn't let us go my dad and my aunt would not let me and Andrew go with my mom. She had a house and job and a vehicle. She was working. And after that, a couple of days later, a couple of days later, my grandma comes and picks us up, and she takes us to these people's house here in the town I live in, and says, y'all are going to stay here for a while. It was a very large house. The people were wealthy. There was lots of animals to take care of. There was lots of space to play. There was everything I never had before as a child. I all of a sudden had. What happened was they took my mom to court. My grandma, my dad, several of my great aunts, several of my aunts, some even on her side, came to the courthouse, told the judge that she was on drugs, and lied. And during this time, my mom stood up in the courtroom and said, "Can I say my piece?" And the judge said, "No, you sit down. If you say anything, you're going straight to jail." So she wasn't even able to defend herself. They court ordered her into a rehab facilitation. While they did that, my dad gave his rights away to my brother and myself, to this family that took us in. And I was told, Andrew was too young, but I was told exactly what to tell the judge. I was told to lie and say that I wanted to live with these people. I know I was told to lie, and I was told if I didn't lie that something bad was going to happen, but it didn't we would go into foster care or something like that, I was told. And it wouldn't be anything like it was currently, at that nice house with all the animals, the farm, and etc. And so they pretty much court ordered my mom into rehab, took her rights away from me and my brother, took her rights completely away. My dad gave up his rights. The couple, I was told to lie to the judge to say that I wanted to live with them, that I didn't want to live with my parents anymore. And after we told the judge gave custody to these people, of me and my brother. Mom was in rehab for 8 days, and I think she finally just walked out the front door and left the rehab, and nobody ever tried to get her back in rehab. The cops didn't get after her or anything like that. She wasn't on drugs. She was fine. That was just their excuse to get her rights taken away from me and Andrew, her sons. And so we lived with these people for a year and a year and a half, something like that. A year and a half. And I was fed up. They forced us to go to church on Sundays. They forced us to go to church on Wednesdays. I'd been to church before as a kid, but I was never every Sunday, every Wednesday type church. And also at that time I knew I was gay. I was a homosexual, and I knew they didn't approve, and I knew that their church wouldn't approve. So I had to get out of there. It was getting bad. I did not get along with the woman at all, for various reasons. I'm not going to say those reasons because I'm not going to be called a slanderer. So a lot of bad things happened. I threw a brick through the window, and she called my grandma to come pick me up. I was 11 and a half, something like that. And then I lived with my grandma and grandpa until I was 17. Then at 17 I moved back to Kirby in a trailer that my great-grandmother was living in, who had to move to my grandparents' house for them to take care of her because she was getting too old. And so I lived in the trailer and went to school in the same town. And so I lived there at 17 years old, and then at 18 I graduated and moved. So that's finishing it for me. But those years that my grandparents that were supposed to raise me, they did not raise me emotionally. They didn't abuse me at all, but they did not. They had already raised their children. They were up in age anyways, and they just didn't know how to raise a kid in that day and age. In the late 90s, they didn't know how to raise a kid my age, and so I was emotionally alone. And back to my brother, he had to stay with those people. He was 3 years younger than me. He stayed with those people for 7 years, I believe, and then he finally got out, and started living with my dad or my grandma or whoever at the time. Just lived here or there, usually with my dad. But that's pretty much the whole story as much as I can tell you. But my phobias, some of my phobias, like my social anxiety, was caused by my father, because before the divorce, after Mom went to rehab, she did get a divorce from my dad. All she wanted was actually custody, half custody with him, and get child support, and she was going to work too, and that's all she asked for. Just like my uncle, he got a divorce from his wife, they shared custody, he paid child support because the kids lived with his wife. We would have probably been living with Mom because Dad was still a drinker and not reliable. He could not have raised me and Andrew because he drank too much and partied too hard. And so trying to think where I was going with that, but the reason my mom is in the state that she's in mentally with me and my brother is because that she feels like that we were taken from her, and we were taken from her, and we didn't want that. We didn't want to be taken from our mother. We loved our mother. This is deep. Like I said, this vlog is pretty deep, and I'm trying to get everything in and as quick as I can because I don't want the video to be so long. But my dad, when I was still living with him and mom, he would make, if somebody knocked on the door, we had to turn the TV off. We had to keep our mouth shut because it usually was a friend of his looking for money that he borrowed, or looking for something he borrowed from him, or looking for something. Or dad just didn't want to interact. Well, it kind of started me on my social phobia for being around people, and I picked it up just like that, just like a habit, and that's how my social anxiety has got to where it is today, almost 30 years later, or 20 years later. I think my social anxiety started at 9, depression started at about 9 years old. A few other things started around 9 years old. I was sexually molested between 5 and 7 years old. And so my brother had to stay with them, but he finally got out and started living with my dad when he was about 14, I guess, 13 or 14. He got out of there. He couldn't stay there either. There was just too many rules. There was too much pressure. The people weren't the best they weren't the best, kindest people. They were wealthy, but and the man worked very, very hard at what he did. But it was not a conducive environment for me and my brother. It just wasn't conducive. It wasn't for me. I couldn't live there, and so a lot of things happened after I left, and my brother holds it against me that I left him. He feels that I left him with those people, but it wasn't me. My grandma could have moved him in too with us up there, live in the same town, but she chose not to move him in. She chose to let him stay with those people. But so maybe that informs you a little bit on why I'm and the way I am on some of the things, and why my brother's in the state that he's in, an addicted drug addict, always getting in trouble. He holds a lot of resentment against me, like I said. He holds a lot of resentment against my mother, my father, my grandma. So anyways, mom is the way she is because she just feels like her kids were taken from her and she wasn't able to raise them, which is true. And I think we would have survived just fine if mom was raising us and she was working and we were going to school, and we either had a babysitter or mom was off work by the time we got out of school, and plus dad paying child support. He made really good money. Like back then he was making $1,000 a week cutting logs. He makes really good money, but at the end of the weekend he didn't have any money because he partied it away. We lived like that for years and years and years and years. I think ever since like they got together and had me, I think my dad, by the time he got paid, he just used all of his money for partying and booze. And so that's why I don't have a really close bond with my father. I never really did. I don't really consider myself having a close bond with him. I love him, but that's it. I don't want to do, like, I'll visit him and stuff, but I'm not going to be like, I love you, Dad, let's go fishing, or let's go hunting, or something like that. We don't have that type of relationship. Anyways, this vlog has gone on long enough, and I'm going to stop it here. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask me in the comment section below, and I will reply. I try to reply to everyone. So I love you. Just always remember that I love you, and peace, and I will see you on the next one.